Hello everyone, welcome to DadTube and Learn to Play Chess. This is episode 10 and it's a recap, just going over the basics of the game without too much waffle and explanation. In chess, set up your board like this. The back row has white on the right. These pawns, the foot soldiers of your army, go on the second row from the back board. Pawns move forwards only. On their very first move, they can move 1 or they can move 2 paces. It's your choice. You cannot save up that 2 pace move for later. That's it, gone. If you don't use it on your first move, for that pawn, you can't use it again. They can only go 1 pace forward on every other move. But how do they take a piece? Well, they can't go forward and then just take the piece. Can't be done. They can attack diagonally. Well, this direction or this direction. But they can't go diagonally any other time. When they make it up the board and they face the prospect of attacking another pawn, if this pawn is about to leave its base square, it can of course go 1 square forward, in which case it could be taken. Or to avoid being taken, it can come 2 paces forward. And you think, well, this pawn is stuck, can't do anything. What it can do now is move diagonally as if this pawn had moved 1 square to start with. And that is called en passant, a French word which means in passing. And that's one of those crazy little exceptions the pawn can do. Later on in the game, when all these pieces aren't here, if a pawn gets the far end of the board, it can be swapped for any other piece except a king. In chess, white always goes first. Next piece we learnt was the rook. Looks like a castle, is called a rook. From wherever it is, it can move sideways in a straight line, left and right, or forwards in a straight line. It can go up to the point where it would otherwise about to be smashing into the square of another piece. If it wants to take a piece, say from this position here, it goes up to the point where it takes that piece and no further. Move is ended. Otherwise, it can travel for as many squares as it likes, or as you like, and they start the game back on these corners. Then we look at the knight. Looks like a horse. This starts life just inside the board next to the rooks. The knight has a very specific pattern of movement. From this position here, or wherever it is, it can go in a straight line, forwards, backwards, left or right, for 2 squares only, like that, and then 1 to the side, either left or right from where it's come from. So from this position here, you go 1, 2 to the left, you go 1, 2 to the right. Here it can go left, 1, 2 there, or 1, 2 right, so on and so forth. It's the only piece that can jump. So from its position back here, it can jump over its own players to land on the final square. It can jump over an opposition piece, but it only takes the piece on the square that it lands on. Then we have the bishops. They go on the squares inside of the knight. A little bit like the rook, but this one travels diagonally. Any number of squares it wants until it can't go any further or it takes a piece. There's 1 bishop on the white square and 1 bishop on the black square. So between them, they can cover every square on the board. Then we looked at the queen. The queen is a combination of the rook and the bishop in what she can do. So she can go forward straight, backward straight, left straight, right straight, forward diagonally to left and right, backwards diagonally, right and left, for as many squares as you wish. She goes on the square of her own colour. So if you're white, it goes on the white square, and if you're black, on the black square. Then we looked at the king. The king is like the queen in the direction he can travel, but he can only travel one square at a time. So in any direction, one square, one square, one square, all the way around. And he goes in the one remaining square left. When we play chess, we don't actually capture the king. What we do is get into a position where he can't escape. So if the black queen here is going to get the king into trouble, she might be here to start with. She would move here, which means on the next move this king would be captured. If that is a situation, you say check. Now the king has to do something about it. 3 ways of getting out of check. One is to move the piece out of the way. It can only move still in check. So on this situation, the king can't do that. The second way is to block the line of check. So for here, you could put the bishop in the way. And the third way is to actually take this piece. So it might be that you have a rook out here, and then the rook could take the queen. If, however, and you can get out of check in this position, but if you could not get out of check, then it is checkmate, and black has won the game. As well as winning the game and losing the game, you can draw the game. If you're down to your last king each and just chasing around the board for eternity, you'd call it a draw. You can also, at any time, if you're admitting defeat, just knock your king over, and that's you giving in. There is a type of draw called a stalemate, where the king is not in check, but only it can move, and it can't move into any other places because every other place around it that is available would put him in check. Therefore that would be an illegal move. You can't make it, the game can't continue. It's called a stalemate. When you're playing chess, if you touch a piece, that's the piece you've got to move. So think ahead, sit tight, consider the moves, consider the options, consider what the other person will do if you make that move. Work out your strategy. When you have decided, then your hand comes forward and touches the piece. But of course, it might be that the piece is way off centre and you just want to put it back so everybody knows where it is. And you just mentioned that you're doing that by saying, I adjust. In castling, you move the king to next to the rook, and then the rook comes around the other side. That's one movement. Or if it's done with the other rook, again the king moves. This time it will be 3 places. It's become next to the rook. You then move the rook the other side. It's a way of protecting the king. You can't do it if the king is in check. You can't do it if the king and the rook you're going to castle with have already moved in the game. And you can't do it if you're going to take the king past a square that is in check already. Hopefully that covers very quickly everything we need to know, everything we've been through on this series. As I said before, learning chess can take a very short time. Getting good at it, practicing it, developing it, and enjoying it can be done for the rest of your life. Off you go, play chess, and enjoy it. Bye.